Welcome in to another episode of Betting the Pitch. I am your there we go. Coming in now. Welcome to another episode of Betting the Pitch. Tried second time. Not sure what's going on with Zoom, but anyway, there we go. I'm your host, the real _ G Warner, whether you're watching this on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, via StreamYard, on StreamYard itself, listening on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. I appreciate you doing it. Please give me 5 stars, subscribe, do whatever it is on each platform. If you want to get this in your inbox as soon or get notified about it as soon as it's released, I'm going to try to stick to a schedule of doing Champions League Monday nights, Europa and Europa Conference League Wednesday nights, and then try to stick to a Friday morning podcast for all weekend soccer updates. Still doing baseball podcasts and a European soccer pod through pregame.com. Appreciate everyone and your responses over there as well, but also trying to grow this brand as much as I can. Would love to make this my real job, but unfortunately we're a long way from that. Anyway, no one cares about that. So we'll get right into Champions League. And it was a pretty good match day one. I think I'll go best bets for each day, and then ultimately a best bet or an ultimate best bet for this show. Might give a little macro talk on kind of how the group started as well. But we'll start on Tuesday with Sporting Lisboa hosting Tottenham, and a crazy scenario with the Queen's death somehow postponing an entire country's events for a weekend because of lack of police. I don't understand that at all, considering they didn't keep anybody out from Manchester United's actual pitch, and they invaded their non-COVID or COVID protected areas because, I don't know what their police do over there. Clearly they don't kill as many citizens as Americans do, and I'm not advocating for police whatsoever. I respect police, but ultimately don't really know what's going on in England, and that's already too much of a diatribe. So Tottenham got the weekend off, so they're pretty primed and ready to go. They're a deep squad anyway. They're going to use 5 substitutions. Wouldn't be shocked if Conte got very, very creative of what's going to happen here. But they travel to Lisbon or Lisboa. I'm going to try to stop using the English pronunciations of cities because they're cities with actual names for a reason. Anyway, Sporting Lisboa with a great performance in their opening match, had a good win against Frankfurt, I believe, on the road. Really good start for them, and ultimately one they needed to get off to. There's a lot of respect for them entering into this Champions League process. The future odds on Sporting Lisboa were pretty good, I got to say, considering what I expected them to be after watching them last year just get thrashed, or seemingly against everyone they played. Whereas Tottenham are certainly one of the favorites to win this competition after all the transfer window work that they did this summer, bringing in so many players. Conte got exactly what he wanted and is still playing the same way that he wanted to. But I think English clubs are just going to always be overloved. Overrated, you could even say, in this competition, but ultimately they keep making the finals, so it's hard to argue with that. But in this matchup, Sporting Lisboa currently a quarter goal underdog at home, which seems a little bit short to me based on expectations for these two clubs. I don't think there's going to be a huge overreaction to Sporting Lisboa with one good match on the road at a German team who's been really struggling, whereas Tottenham got outplayed for 90 minutes, straight up 90 minutes, or you could at least say for the first half, they were getting boat raced, and then probably a decent decision to try to go for a slide tackle by the Olympique Marseille defender. Didn't work out, didn't get the ball, got Heung-min Son instead, and got a red card. Deserved, and can't argue with that. And the match changed completely after that. Marseille still had a lot of the ball and still were in control, I thought, and somehow didn't cover a +1 spread, which is really, really difficult for me to handle. Felt pretty sickening. But that's what happens in the sport. You don't always get what you want in this world, but you certainly, your good bets don't always win. Some bad bets of mine have won. Fewer of that happen than the good ones that lose. But ultimately, in the second goal was just a killer. I think when Olympique Marseille, who are not really known for defense, I'll put it that way, in Liga, they're known for scoring goals and being an energetic team with a huge crowd. They weren't able to cover Richarlison, unfortunately. Twice they blew coverage. One was really egregious. But if that's the Tottenham offense right now, I'm pretty concerned. They ceded possession in Nottingham Forest on the road, covered that match too, didn't deserve it at all, in my opinion. But ultimately, I'm a little biased as I was against them there. And I've been fading Tottenham a fair amount so far this season for mixed results, probably more bad results than good results, but some good ones. And I feel like It's not all about a results-based game here. You got to watch these matches. You got to see what you think about how these matches are going, how you feel about the bet you made, and if you'd make it again. Olympique Marseille, I certainly would have. And I think that speaks to Tottenham's strategy right now. And Antonio Conte, I mean, who am I to hate on his strategy? And it clearly works for him. But as big favorites, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I think speaking to that strategy here on the road, going to Portugal and having to go out and win a match despite ceding possession and giving the ball to the home team, who have a huge crowd, because anytime an English club shows up in any of these other nations, I think kind of like I feel there's a lot of energy coming into those places, and there certainly will be for a Champions League match anyway in Lisboa. Great spot, love the Pink District, and the bars around there were awesome. Also the pastéis, and I'll probably not try to make myself seem too biased, but also rotisserie chicken in Lisboa, also awesome. But without further ado, in terms of betting this matchup, I mean, I'm an underdog player, so I lean to Lisboa at home, Sporting Clube de Portugal. And I like them to give Tottenham a tough time. Currently, the juice is all over Tottenham at the moment. Maybe Tottenham close a half a goal favorite. I think that's possible, especially with late money coming in a lot of times in the big clubs. I'm not sure what to say about where I feel Sporting Lisboa are right now, and certainly they're an inferior side. I don't know if a draw only winning half of a bet is enough for me right now, taking that quarter. So I'll be looking to get a half on them. And that's the first of the, I guess, opening matches for Tuesday's play. The next is Victoria Plazen hosting Inter Milan. Currently Plazen a 1.25 goal underdog at home with most of the juice. They are in a really tough group and are going to finish last. Unfortunately, they're going to finish behind Inter. They're going to try to steal points off of Inter, who are the third best team in the group. Barcelona the second, and Bayern likely the first. And the rest of the teams are going to have to do their best to win matches, not only to get the 3 points against Victoria Plazen, which Barcelona took care of last week, but they also need to get as many goals as possible. I don't exactly have the tiebreakers in front of me as we speak, but goal differential is potentially a big thing to do, especially if there's a 3-way tie or something like that. So unfortunately, if you're backing Victoria Plazen, a Czech side that are clearly overmatched, you got to worry about teams trying to run up the score on them. There's not really a gentleman's agreement in these matches to only win 1-0 or 2-0 or something. So unfortunately, with this spread, there's not a lot of room. I think if you're backing Victoria Plazen, you're only really looking at them on the road and hoping they kind of hang around. I mean, certainly if they won, that'd be a huge thing. But I think for the most part, you need really big spreads to back them. Now, on to Inter Milan, pretty disappointing start to the season. Serie A has not been going very well. I thought they played fairly well against Bayern Munich at home in their opener, but ultimately losing to the eventual or the favored group, the most likely group winner. Not a great start to their campaign to advance. It looks like, I mean, that's certainly a step into the Europa League. I think a draw was a major need for them in that opener, but a win would have been huge, but didn't get any of that. Things haven't been going great. I feel like we're now getting further and further from the Antonio Conte season that won the Scudetto, and Inzaghi, I mean, there's a lot to say about him and how good he was at Lazio and whether he really deserved the Inter job or if they were just settling for someone and trying to pick off one of the other clubs in Italy. But unfortunately, they're in a position where they need to really get a big win here, show some sort of effort, or I don't know that effort's really ever a question for a lot of these professional soccer clubs. I mean, in bad spots it might be, but Inter are really strong, but they're also a team that wants to counter. I don't think that's going to be the style they use here, though. Unlike Tottenham, they're not just going to do it against everybody. It seems they should be on the front foot. They should have a lot of opportunities. Unfortunately, they're going to need Edin Dzeko to be a lot more clinical than he's been so far. He seems to be a really good scorer against poor teams, which Victoria Plazen in the Czech league certainly qualify as one of those. Lautaro Martinez can be really hot, but can also go through big stretches where he's scoring no goals and is really just a cancer to the team with his attitude. So I'm not really sure what to expect from Inter at this point. I feel like I would like to be against them, but I don't think the Czech club are good enough for me to want to do that here. So I'll leave that 1.25 behind as we move to the afternoon matches on Tuesday. Bayern Munich then hosts Barcelona, currently probably the biggest match out there, and probably the reason why it's listed first. Rotation numbers at the 2 p.m. Central Time in the United States kickoff. I guess it's probably 8 p.m. I think, or 9 p.m. in Europe, depending on what time zone you're in. Anyway, doesn't matter. Probably 9 p.m. in Bayern, in München. And ultimately, Bayern are a half a goal favorite right now. And that feels a little short to me. I think just because I want to back Barcelona as an underdog, and if I'm going to do that in Robert Lewandowski's return to Munchen, I really need to look at or get a big number here, because Bayern have been struggling in the league. They've I think 3 straight draws, especially a late penalty conceded by Matthias de Ligt, who just doesn't look like a very good defender anymore, despite being like the young up and comer phenom of the world 3 or 4 years ago. Didn't really come on or do very well at Juve, and then Juventus sold him to Bayern Munich. That says something when you're selling a former. I mean, the expectations were as high as possible, and it's hard to live up to them. But he's got some problems. He's way too physical in the box. Gave a penalty late that really cost Bayern a victory, and basically made the Bundesliga season last a little bit longer, I think, because Leipzig and Borussia Dortmund keep beating up on each other. But ultimately, this is a matchup where if I'm going to back Barcelona, I need to be confident they're going to defend, and I don't know how you can feel that way about them. Jules Koundé coming in the defensive back line is going to be really important, but I don't see any sort of congealed side from them. Good performance at Cadiz this weekend, but Cadiz, I don't think, has scored in the league, has no points, and they got 2 late goals to make a 2-0 match look 4-0, and were goalless in the first half. Not really a good showing. I think both of these teams certainly could be playing a lot better as we speak. Bayern look really deep, and the Sadio Mane in the transfer in was a huge. I mean, the amount of I guess dismissals that Liverpool knew exactly what they're doing, and that they don't need Mane, and that, I mean, they've looked terrible. Bayern have looked like they really needed him, and he's an important piece. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him in the World Cup for Senegal, because I feel like he's the type of player that can make a difference and can change a team. And it seems like that's kind of who he is. In terms of for this matchup, certainly huge for qualifying and for moving into the knockout stages. Inter clearly have a very easy matchup with Victoria Plazen in their match that day. I don't think that the result's really going to matter for this one, as both are on 3 points, but certainly you could talk about goal differential being a thing here. Based on the spread on this number, though, and Bayern giving a half of a goal, I think if I'm going to back Barcelona, I need to have confidence that they're going to outscore Bayern, because I don't trust their defense. And I feel like on the road in Munich, that's going to be a tough thing to do. Speaking of Munich, going to be there next week. So if anybody is there and wants to hang out, wants to get a Stein or a beer or a doner kebab or whatever the heck they're known for, I don't know anything really, a pretzel even, hit me up, because I would love to do it at the @real_G Warner. Next, we'll move to Liverpool hosting Ajax. Liverpool, a 1-goal favorite with almost all the juice right now at Bet Online. Liverpool, just as I said, certainly licking their wounds without Sadio Mane, and the team has changed a lot since he left. They have a lot of questions about them currently, and looked awful at Napoli. Honestly, I felt 4-1 was a very flattering scoreline to Liverpool, not to Napoli. Could have been 6-7-0. Liverpool were really fortunate. We're not at the races. I don't even know that the Napoli crowd was that impressive, that they really did that much. It just seemed to be a young team like Napoli at home. Liverpool looked dead tired. I mean, they haven't even played that many matches yet. It's only going to be an even more crowded calendar, especially with all these cancellations due to a 96-year-old's death. But I don't really know what to say about Liverpool at this point, and giving a full goal of insurance to a decent club does make me interested in Ajax. Ajax were pretty dominant in that opener, and good for them. I mean, I'm not sure that was something I really saw happening, but it did. 4-0 victory, which has them topping the group right now, and that's pretty damn impressive in my humble opinion. Now, can Ajax follow that up? And Liverpool got much needed rest this past weekend. I mean, they probably weren't rooting for the Queen to die, but that was a huge thing to get them off their feet and try to get them as healthy as possible, because their midfield is a joke, or it was at Napoli, and certainly has been for a lot of the season. I think answers to why they've been struggling so much and have been drawing matches that they should win. Now, Ajax will go. They don't have Erik ten Hag anymore, who's moved on to Manchester United, but it seems like the strategy based on that first result is similar. I do need to learn more about that to fully feel confident in what I'm saying about Ajax and kind of what their strategy is. But ultimately, from where I sit, getting a full goal of insurance is nice. I just don't know if that's enough for me at the moment, because I do have still a little concern about playing in front of the Kop at Anfield and trying to deal with Liverpool off of an off week, a bye week, essentially, where I'm sure Ajax played in the Eredivisie and have to go on the road for this. And so I'll be looking for Ajax to climb a little bit higher than the current +1. and I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. Next, we'll go with Bayern Leverkusen hosting Atletico Madrid, currently a pick'em, with most of the juice on Atleti on the road right now. Not significantly different, but minus 115 to Leverkusen's minus 105 at pick'em. These two clubs are not that similar, in my opinion. Bayer Leverkusen have been so bad, so bad in the Bundesliga. And then like, of all things that you could trust about that side is their captain, Lukas Hradecky, the Finland international goalkeeper, who's been really the tried and true savior for Leverkusen in the goal, because their backups have been so bad, even worse than the way Leverkusen have started this season. I'm sorry to keep using the same adjective, but ultimately Leverkusen are an offensive side that want to play on the front foot and want to go at you the whole time. And that has not worked so far this year because their defense can't cover for a bad offense or an offense that isn't scoring. They fell behind on a wonder goal from a great story in Marcus Richter, who just, I think, had a testicle removed and beat testicular cancer and scored now 2 goals in 2 consecutive match days within 2 months. It seems awesome. Great story for him. But for Leverkusen, they did get an equalizer to tie it up. Petrosik finally scored a goal. He's been missing a lot of chances so far this season. And as we saw in the Euro 2 summers ago, he was so incredible, but was hurt basically all of last season and really hasn't been that goal scoring threat that they need. They're really missing Florian Wirtz, their midfielder, center midfielder, 10 type position player, who's likely, if he's healthy, going to start for Germany, I would think, in the World Cup. Big questions though, because he still hasn't returned, and you certainly need to be firing if you're going to start in that type of situation. Maybe they work him in from the bench, something like that. But he's young and hasn't been around for a while, and the Leverkusen offense has tanked since then. Their defense is not really capable, I don't think. Atletico Madrid, I mean, it's be the ultimate I don't know, pot calling kettle black. No, that's probably not the fairest thing, but I've been an Atleti hater. Them winning 4-1 this weekend at home against Celta de Vigo when they got outplayed for almost the entire match is honestly incredible. But give them credit for finishing and taking opportunities when Celta de Vigo were hitting the post, or their new striker was missing the goal entirely. Atleti do have some polished players. I do think that they have a lot of problems because they're not the defensive unit that they once were, and that's what made them so successful under Diego Simeone. But they do have the ability, and I think they're going to want to counterattack, especially on the road in Germany here. Leverkusen are going to push forward, try to score goals, because that's all they know how to do, especially under Seoane, who is even less pragmatic than Peter Bosz. And that's saying something, because Peter Bosz hasn't ever had a pragmatic bone in his body. I like Atleti. I'm sad that they are favored, but they probably should be. And if they move to an underdog really of any type of sort, I will look at them, especially as an expensive quarter or something like that, maybe even plus money on pick'em. I just don't know that it'll get there. And so there's probably not much for me to do on that one. Next, we'll go Marseille hosting Eintracht Frankfurt, currently Marseille, a half a goal favorite. And they deserved a lot better from their performance last weekend, but then had to turn around and play Lille this weekend. Market really didn't like them, as they were betting Lille right until the kickoff, really down from a half a goal favorite to a quarter. The nice part is Eintracht Frankfurt are off to a really poor start. Frankfurt had Wolfsburg at home this weekend in a little bit of an emotional match against, 2 managers that formerly managed the previous clubs, all that sort of stuff. But Frankfurt, they were really bad in the Bundesliga last season, finished 8th place, I think, and wouldn't have qualified for Europe if they hadn't won the Europa League. And so they basically jumped competitions into the Champions League when they wouldn't have even made the Conference League. And I think they're going to have a really rough time balancing both. I like to be against them, which unfortunately, as an underdog here, that would be the side I'd want. So going to Le Orange Velodrome is going to be a very, very tough time for Frankfurt. I think Marseille certainly have some problems, and a French league club are not anywhere near as strong as a lot of these teams in the competition based on finances, but they went out and bought players in the offseason, which not a lot of French clubs did. So I think Marseille are a good side here that have a good chance at winning this match. So getting half of a goal is nowhere near enough for me to back Eintracht Frankfurt. Last but not least, on Tuesday, we have FC Porto hosting Bruges. Porto, a 1.25 goal favorite, all the juice on Bruges at the moment. Bruges was my favorite bet of last week. I'm not sure if I made it my ultimate best bet. I'm not doing a great job of tracking those. Apologies. But if someone's got that, fire them in the comments so that everyone's aware, or I'll try to update that maybe as I'm on the plane to Germany. I'll just take some notes and see exactly who I picked. But anyway, going direct, Dallas to Frankfurt. So looking forward to that. Gonna figure out how I'm gonna sleep on a plane for 9 hours or something. Probably some sleeping pills or be involved. But anyway, Bruges were a great performance in that first week. Got exactly what they needed. I think not a lot of people probably expected them to be on 3 points with Atletico Madrid right now, despite having a home match in their opener for Champions League. They're going to do their best to try to grit, bear it, try to grab a point here, because that'll keep them 3 points ahead of Porto. And that's going to be a tough ask for them. I do think Bruges have a lot more talent than you'd think from a Belgian side. I mean, Dedrick Boyata, transfer in from Hertha Berlin, where things didn't go great for him last season, and maybe he didn't have a great year, but he's still a really good defender, and he's not even making their starting lineup. So Bruges have done a lot more business than you would expect from a Belgian side. I think they can compete. So then you think about FC Porto, who, I mean, what an incredible. Unfortunately, it was against Atletico Madrid, so I'm already biased a little bit in not liking them. But Porto controlled that match. Taremi, for a second time, I think when I've bet on him, took a diving simulation second yellow card. I mean, just incredible. Or I think one time was kicking the ball away, but just like really, really stupid things. And now he's not available for them, which does remove an important striking possibility or option for them. The Iranian national really needs to get that ish together before the World Cup, because that stuff just doesn't fly. And unfortunately, I've watched him do so many stupid things, and I don't even watch Porto very much because I have no way to watch the Portuguese league here in the US. I don't even know if who has the broadcast rights to that. Regardless, without him, how are they going to score goals? And they need 2 to cover the spread against Bruges as well, which makes me like Bruges even more. They're going to be as compact as they can be. I think there are there's a lot more talent, I think, in Bruges than you'd think from a Belgian side. Simon Mignolet has been good in the goalkeeping position. Former Liverpool goalkeeper, and there's a reason why he's not there anymore. It might just be because Alisson's great, but I think there's a little bit more to that story. But he looked fairly good against Leverkusen. I don't want to go all in on that because I don't remember that match exactly, because I've watched probably 70 matches this week. But he was awesome Bruges were awesome. Not mean like Bruges were awesome. Got that win against Leverkusen, took advantage of some mistakes, certainly. But that's what happens in football. And I think getting a goal in a quarter here is too much from Porto's side. They're going to have to figure out how to score. Otavio was really good for them last year in Champions League and in their run, I think, when they knocked out Juve 2 years ago. Also a good, important piece of the Portuguese national team, but didn't really seem to play in much of an offensive attacking position like he does for the national team, at least in his lineup or the setup against Atleti. Certainly, you consider the team and their opponent they're facing there, as I try to say both at the same time. But from where I sit in this matchup, I'm very interested in Bruges getting more than a goal, and it might even be my favorite one that I've talked about so far. I'll go through each of the days at the end of the podcast before we get through our best bets, and also do still plan to go through the groups a little bit beyond what I'm doing for each of these matchups. Moving to Wednesday, we have AC Milan hosting Dinamo Zagreb in the early matchup, or one of the 2 early matchups. Dinamo Zagreb with one of the bigger surprises of anybody. Cost Thomas Tuchel his job, though it might be because everyone thinks he's a dick. But that's not the surprise. And he is a Champions League champion, European champion, whatever. Great manager, but clearly has a lot to do on the people side of things. And Dinamo Zagreb, I mean, hilarious that his last match was in Croatia of all places, but good for them. And that was a good win. AC Milan currently giving a goal in 3 quarters to Dinamo Zagreb. And that's a big, big number for AC Milan to lay, especially considering Dinamo Zagreb are sitting on top of that group right now. I don't expect that to last, but it's kind of hilarious to see after Milan and Salzburg drew in their opener, Milan on the road. So not bad getting a point away from home, but certainly were favored and expected more than that. So how do Milan get to 2 goals? Probably Rafael Leao, who's been so good, so strong, so talented, so quick. And he finally looks like he can finish. He is one of the scarier people out there. And it's probably only a few months until someone from England buys him and spends $150 million just breaking records every place you can, or euros, or whatever the number would be. Dinamo Zagreb, they're going to have a tough time going on the road. I watched and backed them on the road at Bodo Glimt, I think a Norwegian side, where they lost 1-0, and tried to play defensively even against a Norwegian team that they're clearly worth way more money than. Did get them through the Champions League because they did well enough in the second leg, but ultimately leaving it to that does give me some questions and makes me think maybe it was a Chelsea thing and not really a Dinamo Zagreb thing, and why they won, aka bad performance by Chelsea. But Milan, as this moves and climbs to 2 goals, I mean, it makes me want to go the other way more and more. I haven't had great success fading Milan so far this season. I feel like they've been outperforming the way they've actually performed, or the results have been better than the performances so far. But that is something that happens. They are Scudetto champions, defending Scudetto holders in Italy. And Serie A, I mean, is a league that seems like the Seven Sisters or Six Sisters or whatever are so much leaps and bounds above the bottom of the league that Milan are able to not use all their bullets every match, every weekend. So Zagreb have a really tough time ahead of them here. I do think that they can be competitive, especially after watching what they did against Chelsea. But I want to be sure not to overreact to that upset win and then seeing, oh my gosh, they're getting 2 goals here, and thinking that must be a game that will stay close. I do think Milan can run away. They've got a really smart back line that's very young, that's very athletic. They pressure and really attack and try to get the ball back immediately as possible with a high line. Somehow it hasn't been beaten yet, and certainly wasn't beaten enough in Serie A last year because they won the title. I don't know that I trust Pioli too much, but maybe he finally has the talent he needs to show the manager who he is. Next in the early round of matches, we have Shakhtar Donetsk hosting Celtic, currently Shakhtar, a quarter goal underdog at home, but they're not playing in Ukraine because unfortunately there's a war going on and Vladimir Putin is insane. But they're playing, I believe, in Poland. I think all of the Ukrainian teams are playing there. There's been great crowd support in Poland, because I don't think there's a Polish team in Champions League. I think more so for Dinamo Kiev, but ultimately I'm sure that they sold like 18,000 tickets beforehand or something like that for supporters of Dinamo Kiev in Poland. I imagine we might see a similar thing here with Shakhtar Donetsk, especially after that big victory and like landslide victory against Leipzig. Certainly the score got really ugly because Leipzig just put any sort of caution to the wind. We're playing one defender back, trying to score to get equalizers. And I think Domenico Tedesco realized that his job was on the line, and that's why he's no longer employed. But I got to say, Celtic, I mean, they thrashed Rangers a couple weekends ago, and then 2 matches ago, and then got a ton of respect from the marketplace. I think they were hosting Real Madrid. Were closed below a goal, and even though Benzema went off injured after 29 minutes, they still weren't able to hang around and ended up losing by a lopsided scoreline. So there's some problems there with Celtic. I feel like they're overrated, as a lot of UK teams seem to be in soccer markets. Now they go on the road and have to win I guess it's technically a neutral, and maybe that matters, but even on a neutral site, seeing a Scottish team favored makes me really like the Shakhtar Donetsk side that certainly have lost a lot of players. Unfortunately, their squad value is probably so low because of all the players they've had to either sell or loan out because of the FIFA regulations, which I can't blame them for. But I'm certainly into Shakhtar right now. Saw the performance, thought they deserved everything they got against Leipzig. Maybe got a little fortunate, but they were the better side that day, I thought, and they really exposed and punished a Leipzig side that looked listless and looked like they had no answers. So like Shakhtar Donetsk a fair amount in that last match of the early window. Moving to the late ones, Chelsea hosting Red Bull Salzburg, a big bounce back opportunity for Chelsea. Currently Chelsea a 1.5 goal favorite, and that's a big number for them to cover, considering they haven't been able to score goals for 2 seasons now. Even 3 seasons when they won Champions League, it was because of their defense. Red Bull Salzburg, they've really have shown, especially in the second leg against Bayern Munich last year, that they're going for it no matter what. Same manager still around. They sold off a lot of players, but still have a lot of talent in that system. Probably not nearly as much as they did last year, but of course still they're scoring goals. And they got a big draw against AC Milan, so confidence should be pretty high. Now they go to Chelsea into Stamford Bridge, and unfortunately they have to go defend, and I don't know that that's really likely to happen. They're getting a goal and a half, so that's a big number. And unfortunately there's probably going to be a lot of goals in this matchup, which is scary when you're backing an underdog, because ultimately goalless draws are the dream for any sort of underdog. I don't think that's going to happen here. I think Chelsea are going to have a lot of opportunities. Do I believe in them to win matches by 2 goals? No, because I don't really think that they can score 2 goals normally. But I do think they're going to have a lot of open opportunity here, and I'm just not going to let that big 1.5 goal spread entice me. I'm just going to look past it because I'm mature now, and that 3.25 goal spread doesn't make a 1.5 goal underdog seem that safe, to say the least. Next, we have Real Madrid hosting RB Leipzig. Currently, Real Madrid a 1 goal favorite with all the juice. I don't know if it was a decent performance from Real Madrid this weekend. They literally dribbled past Real Mallorca for 3 goals to win the match, and then got a late one as well. Defense was questionable on an early header that they conceded to Marishi, but ultimately, I don't think that Leipzig have anyone that's that tall that they have to worry about in the Real Madrid back line. Ferland Mendy, also probably not the guy you want to have as a left back or fullback defending him. But anyway, Leipzig with a great performance, a big win at home against Dortmund, and they were in control. I mean, they got a you could say a fortunate goal on a set piece, a long header on a corner kick, which was huge, and then a screamer from outside the box from Szoboszlai, which is what he certainly in his locker, he's got it. But how often are those things going to happen? Probably not very. And then from there, I think Borussia Dortmund kind of looked like they were dead in the water, knew the game was over, which is a sad thing, especially for this club legend, not like in the playing capacity, but this club, this manager, Erdem Terzic, who came in after winning anyway, that's Dortmund talk. We'll get that in a second. But Leipzig took care of business. They got a big win under Marco Rose, who is a good manager, but didn't work out for him at Dortmund, thanks to, I think, a really bad defense, which wasn't really his fault. A lot of confidence from that matchup, especially, and kind of a romantic story, as I think he grew up in Leipzig, so that's pretty cool. But they go to the Bernabeu. Leipzig have really struggled in past seasons defensively. Their defense has a lot of big numbers, names, and some decently attractive clauses to buy players out and sign them for other places. That's kind of the Red Bull Leipzig model at this point. But from where I sit with Real Madrid, I got to see what the status of Karim Benzema is, because without him, that offense is really scary. I mean, their goals this weekend were Valverde from the top of the box, just dribbling and no one stopped him. I think it was Vinny Jr. on a pretty good play of creativity, something that definitely he and Benzema do a lot, a tic-tac-toe type of pass that got in and scored. And then the last goal was another dribble and long shot. Maybe a little of a slalom dribble at the end, but ultimately just I think that's poor and potentially tired legs of a Mallorca defense, which really shouldn't have been the case because they had a lot of defenders there, but they didn't handle it well. Leipzig, on the other hand, they want to press the ball and get it back as quickly as possible. At least that's been their strategy for a while. It's a little different under Marco Rose, as he played with 4 at the back instead of 5, which is basically what 5 at the back was what Tedesco was doing. It's exactly what Julian Nagelsmann was doing before he left for Bayern Munchen. And Jesse Marsch tried to change that. Didn't really work very well. We'll see, because it worked in the first match for Marco Rose, but we'll see if they can keep that going. There's a lot of talent all over Leipzig, and getting a full goal of insurance is a nice number to look at, especially as it might climb to 1.25. It's a hard place for me in this one, because Leipzig have a lot of talent. They certainly do, but their defense is a big question. Real Madrid never seem to look that great, but winning time for them is late in matches when they really turn things on. They score a ton of goals, and that 1 goal of insurance looks really small, unfortunately, even on the 74th minute if they're drawing 1-1 with Mallorca. Leipzig are not used to defending as much as a team like Mallorca are. I don't want to compare Mallorca too much because they're nowhere near a Champions League podcast, but ultimately, I'm always going to lean against Real Madrid because I always feel like they're overrated because they take too many chances out of matches and really don't win anything from start to finish. But maybe that's part of their game, is that they tire you out. That's what they're intelligent. That's how they play. And that's maybe why Carlo Ancelotti has won so many cups. But I lean to Leipzig right now, and probably have gone on for an hour on this match alone. Next, we go FC Copenhagen hosting Sevilla. Currently, Copenhagen, a quarter-goal underdog at home. All the juice on Sevilla, and they finally got a win, though they had to hold on for dear life at Espanyol. Took a 3-0 lead, and really not a lot of beautiful football was played. Scored in like the first minute. Scored on a missed clearance that fell right to a defender who was somehow in the box, right in the 6-yard box for an easy goal. Then got another, and then had to, like I said, hold on for dear life. Sevilla are in big trouble. The problem is I don't know how competitive Copenhagen can be. They put in some effort against Dortmund, but it wasn't great, and ended up losing 3-0. And it's hard to really take too much from that in a positive light. Though the Copenhagen crowd should be lit for this one. In qualifying, it was really cool. And Sevilla are certainly not the sturdiest of all teams right now. If that crowd can make a big difference and make Sevilla pee down their legs, then I think that's a very important thing. I don't know. I mean, Sevilla's got so many accomplished professional, international, European football players that they probably aren't going to be swayed too much by it. But when you look at Sevilla and where they're going to get goals, especially as a road favorite, I don't know where they're coming from. Papu Gomez is probably their best creator. Eric Lamela is hard to trust him. He took a red card suspension in La Liga, but should be available for this one. Rafa Mir just hasn't really worked for Sevilla, maybe because they just never seem to have the cross in the box available to him. Club legend on the wing. I can picture him right now. Jesus Navas. He just hasn't really been available, as I think he's 36 years old, going on 50. So there's a lot of questions there, and how Sevilla are going to score. And Copenhagen probably at home are going to sit back and try to defend. Now that does open up Sevilla to score, and they're really good with possession, and that probably makes a Sevilla clean sheet more and more likely. It almost makes me feel like if I'm back in Copenhagen, then that under 2.5 goals looks almost just as tasty as that quarter on Copenhagen. Currently, Sevilla with all the juice, maybe it moves to half of a goal and you win on a draw on Copenhagen. And but I feel like I don't see a route to many goals for Copenhagen, especially if they sit back and defend. So I think that 2.5 looks a lot better than that current +1 quarter. Next, we'll go Rangers hosting Napoli. And this is a major overreaction type matchup. I know in the NFL, a lot of my listeners are in the US. There's usually big overreactions to week 2, which coincidentally is just coming up. I think there are going to be some big overreactions to the Napoli demolition of Liverpool. And then Rangers losing pretty substantially. Currently, Rangers a 3/4 goal underdog at home with almost all the juice. At +1, I like the idea, especially because Rangers have a huge crowd advantage. And based on the Queen's death, is not allowing any Napoli supporters to travel, which is insane. There'll probably be a few Napoli supporters that get in, but just ridiculous. I mean, the UK is an absolute joke. I'm glad we threw a lot of tea in the river. But ultimately, from where I sit with this one, I was looking and kind of hoping to back Rangers this year as a home underdog, expecting that the crowd to be a big deal. I think it will be here. But until I get a 1 goal, full goal of insurance, I'm not sure it's on my list. And Napoli have been so good and are so scary. And this is a time where I shout out, I picked Napoli to advance. Certainly off to a great start. It's not over yet. But I think if they can go and get a victory at Rangers, then they're in really good shape. And they're currently favored to do that. But we'll see if Rangers climb to +1. Then I'll be a lot more interested. Next, go Manchester City hosting Borussia Dortmund. Currently Man City, a 2-goal favorite with almost all the juice right now. Monster number for Dortmund. But I don't want to fall in love with Dortmund because I wasn't very comfortable in them to start the year. I feel like they've been keeping clean sheets despite a defense that's still trying to learn how to play together. Maybe overreact that to a little bit, but also some of the goals that Leipzig scored this weekend weren't exactly high XG. So hard to really expect that to be a big problem with Dortmund. It was nice to see Sula in there starting next to my guy, Nico Schlotterbeck. That's going to be their defense moving forward. I think as Hummels is more of a third defender kind of rotation guy. But who knows what's going to happen with this lineup, and especially how they react to a really poor performance that was pretty lifeless from the start. Apparently Marco Reus can't just score all the goals for him. He didn't really do much against Leipzig, unfortunately. I imagine the strategy was to take him out of there, and you could say that Marco Reus knew a lot about that team, considering he had just coached them the season before. But they're going to go to Man City, the Etihad, and have to deal with Pep Guardiola and Erling Haaland, their former striker, which is also kind of a hilarious juxtaposition in this matchup. But the 2 goals of insurance is a monster number. I don't think I was anywhere near guessing that type of price. But from where I sit, it's really hard to get involved with Dortmund right now, especially going on the road to the best team in the world. Man City are going to pick this team apart. Dortmund certainly have the pace in the counterattack to try to sit back and defend. I just don't really think they're ever going to do that. They're too proud of a club, I think, to go that way. Even maybe in the UCL Champions League final, they might. But I think Karim Adeyemi would be a really important piece to Dortmund to just unleash on counterattacks, as it looked very good for Salzburg last year in Champions League. He hasn't really been playing that much, and I don't know if he's healthy, so there's a lot of questions there. So this is one where it's a big number, but Man City's, I feel like, certainly I lean to Dortmund, but I'm not that interested in as we speak. Over-under's 3.5, so there's probably going to be a lot of goals. So that +2 means less and less as that over-under gets higher and higher. Next, we go Juve hosting Benfica and Juventus are a 1/4 goal favorite, which is pretty short. I mean, basically they're getting home field advantage against the Portuguese side. Say what you want. Benfica's great, but ultimately seeing how proud Juve have been and how dominant they were in Italy for so long until the pandemic, pretty disappointing to see them only a 1/4 goal favorite at home. But I like the underdog. I mean, surprise, surprise. Juve have been banged up. they still have a decent lineup that they put out there, especially what they used this weekend on Sunday against Salernitana. But that's a pretty quick turnaround. They do get to stay at home, which is nice. But Benfica, I think, are a Portuguese side. They did sell Julian Weigl to Borussia Mönchengladbach, and he started this weekend. So they certainly haven't kept everybody. Darwin Nunez, everyone knows, left as well. But there's a lot in that side that I liked last season. They were really good in qualifying for the Champions League. Knocked out Ajax, who had a really good offense. And the way Juve want to play, or they want to take the lead and they want to sit on it. That's not a way to, against good teams at least, to get 3 points. So I'm not as worried about Juve taking a lead, going up 1-0, because I think Benfica have the ability to equalize. I also think if Benfica take a lead, Juve are unlikely to get 2. So I feel like this is a pretty low scoring matchup. Maybe that under 2.5 is worth it just as much, depending on how I feel about Benfica scoring. Certainly like Benfica a lot more at a half, but under 2.5 also looks worth it. Last but not least, Makabi Haifa hosting PSG. As I guess for Liga's sake, it's good to see PSG having to travel to Israel and then come back, and maybe they'll be a little tired and have to rotate a little bit. But Makabi Haifa getting 2.5 goals. It's going to be a tough situation for them. Ultimately, PSG are so strong. They've been buying really well, and their talent is they're so strong. I mean, if they don't feel like this is the year for them to win Champions League, I haven't taken any futures on it, but certainly probably something I should look towards, or at least think of some sort of money line parlay rollover, especially even if they get a bad draw, just backing them as they go. Because I do like PSG a lot. I feel like Mbappe is the best player in the world, and I don't really know what type of number I would need to back Maccabi Haifa, because the 2.5 certainly isn't doing it. So looking over the groups, I guess, just to go through that as I promised, and then we'll go best bets, end of show, per usual, plus a little ultimate best bet at the end. So Ajax on top of Group A with Napoli on 3 points, Liverpool and Rangers on 0. That'd be a big surprise, but Liverpool's got a chance to get even with Ajax, and Napoli. Big match for them to try to get as far as possible ahead of everyone to try to get into the second round as quickly as possible. Group B, Atletico Madrid and Club Brugge tied at 3 points, Porto and Leverkusen on 0. Surprised to see Brugge here, because I think most people had them finishing last, but there's some flaws certainly in the Leverkusen side. Wouldn't be shocked if Seoane isn't managing tomorrow and I missed that news, but they also got a lot of votes of confidence, but it's never good when those things happen, because you wouldn't be giving votes of confidence if things were going well. Porto, I think, are fairly strong, but certainly don't like their position as we speak. Group C, we have Barcelona and Bayern on 3 points, Inter on 0, and Victoria Plazen on 0. It's going to be a big matchup for Barcelona and Bayern. I think the winner of that matchup is going to have a huge leg up into moving on to the next round. Bayern at home certainly would be the one I would expect, but Inter have to get a win against Victoria Plazen. Have to do it on the road. It's a big question, but they should be throwing everything at that matchup, which might make me want to then look the other way to fade into this weekend, but that's for a future podcast. Group D, Sporting on top on 3 points, Tottenham on 3, Marseille on 0, and Eintracht Frankfurt on 0. Another big surprise early, but I would expect Marseille to start climb in the right direction. I feel like they're a side that I was looking at potentially picking as a too advanced type of team. Don't think I ended up clicking submit on that one, but thought about it. Frankfurt just haven't really been off to a good start. They have to show something. They haven't done it yet. Group E, Dinamo Zagreb, surprise leader, and then on 3 points, two points ahead of Milan and Salzburg on 1. Chelsea on none and lost their manager, but should have a bounce back effort here. I mean, Milan, this is a big opportunity for them to get to the top of the league with a big win against Dinamo Zagreb as a big favorite at home. Probably should happen, but I think Dinamo Zagreb, I mean, the hard part is just how do you gauge a Croatian side on the road in Italy competing? That's gonna be hard, and Chelsea should have all the energy and reason to go balls to the wall with a lot of space against Salzburg. Definitely rooting for Salzburg, but we'll see what happens there. Group F, Shakhtar Donetsk, another shock leader on 3 points, thanks to goal differential ahead of Real Madrid's 3 points. RB Leipzig on 0 and Celtic on 0. This is a big week for Shakhtar and Celtic. If someone gets a win here, I mean, if Shakhtar get to 6 points, it'd be a huge Moldovan type of FC Sheriff type of start from last season. Didn't end up working out, and Shakhtar ended up, I think, finishing last in that group coincidentally, but I think they know what it takes, and I like the idea of being an underdog on a neutral, because Celtic I don't think are that much better. Man City, then Dortmund, Copenhagen, and Sevilla. Man City and Dortmund both on 3 points. That's probably how the group should go, though I imagine Sevilla will finish above Copenhagen. But big matchup between those two. I think Copenhagen at home against a pretty rattled Sevilla side that I don't think had a ton of confidence from barely hanging on to a 3-0 victory on the road, which is a good win. Any win on the road is a good win in La Liga, especially, but Espanyol have not been good. So I'm certainly not changing my opinion on them just yet. And then last but not least, Group H, Benfica on top on 3 points, PSG on 3, Juve on 0, and then Makabi Haifa on 0. Big week. I mean, Benfica, they can make a big step. If they can somehow win at Juve, that'd be huge. I feel like that's going to be a low scoring matchup, and PSG are eventually going to win this group. It depends by how much, I think, once we get there. So now for the best bet portion of the show, I'll give one for Tuesday and one for Wednesday. Tuesday, I'm interested in Sporting Lisboa, but a quarter is too low. Not interested in Plazen. Barcelona is not enough. I mean, maybe over 3.5 is some interest, but I'm not sure there. Ajax +1 based on the problems that Liverpool have, but I'm just not sure that Ajax's defense will be up to par for that one. Lean to Atleti, but they're currently got more of the juice right now at Pick'em, so we need quite a reversal to get them into an underdog position. Not fading Marseille with Eintracht Frankfurt, just not doing it. Bruges getting 1.25 from Porto seems like a big number for a team that I think is underrated, has a lot of confidence for the win last week. So I'm going to make Bruges +1.25 as my best bet for Tuesday of Champions League. Now to Wednesday, AC Milan 1.75 goal favorites to Dinamo Zagreb. I think this could be closer than that number, but I'm not much for me to do there until I at least get 2 on Zagreb. Shakhtar Donetsk getting 1/4 on a neutral site, but technically as the home team against Celtic. I think if you're not rooting for Celtic there, you're rooting for the Ukrainians for sure. So I like that one. Chelsea giving 1.5 goals to Salzburg. They're much better at home, and maybe that's who they are. It's just a home team that can score there and can't on the road. Salzburg's going to give them too many opportunities for me to play. I do like over 3.25, but that's still a lot for Chelsea's defense to allow and Chelsea's offense to score. Real Madrid giving a goal to Leipzig. I like Leipzig, but there's a lot of questions for me in this matchup, I got to say. And I've not had a good record fading Real Madrid. Though if Benzema doesn't play, that certainly makes me more interested. I like Copenhagen at home getting 1/4 from Sevilla. It looks like that might climb to 1/2. Also like under 2.5 goals in that one. So there's a lot of dog and under correlation there that I'm interested in. Rangers getting 3/4 a goal from Napoli, not enough until I get 1. And we might get that despite the juice being the opposite way at the moment. Manchester City giving 2 goals to Borussia Dortmund, huge number. I would not get sucked into Borussia Dortmund being an underdog or too big of an underdog than you were expecting, because it did not go very well in Champions League last year. Juve hosting Benfica, giving 1/4. I'm interested in Benfica on the road, getting that 1/4, also that under 2.5 goals. I think I don't know where a lot of goals come from in this one, and the strategy from Allegri to basically take the air out of the ball with the lead is something. And last but not least, Maccabi Haifa getting 2.5 goals from PSG. Not really that interested in 3.5 as the over under. I mean, probably a lot of goals come, but I don't know how many Haifa will even chip in. So for my best bet on Wednesday, I'm going to go with FC Copenhagen instead of the +1/4. I'd love 1/2, and I think it'll get there, but not going to take that. I'll go under 2.5 in their match with Sevilla. I think Sevilla will have a lot of possession, but it's going to be tough for them to break down Copenhagen. And if they do get broken down, I think Copenhagen will have a lot of energy to defend and try to hold on to a lead. So in terms of the best bets, so we got Bruges getting 1.25 from Porto on Tuesday, and Copenhagen under 2.5 on Wednesday. I'm going to go with under 2.5 in the FC Copenhagen Sevilla FC matchup as my ultimate best bet for this episode. You can follow me on Twitter, @the_real_G Warner. Thanks again for listening, watching, wherever you're on Twitter, on StreamYard, on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're getting this. I appreciate it. Please leave 5 stars, subscribe, like, do all the things you can do. I'll try to I've been looking through the comments. I haven't gotten anything to go through yet on this podcast. Usually it's just people are just writing jokes at me, essentially, which I'm here for that too, especially in the DMs, always open @the_real_G Warner on Twitter. And I'm going to stop the rambling now. Thanks for coming in.